this session on going gig. Now, the whole premise of this session is how do we make alternate careers, whether you are working in a large organization or you are about to start something on your own or you are a solo entrepreneur or running an organization. These current times are quite hard hitting for all of us to do a bit of introspection and trying to understand that how do we really make our careers less dependent on the exigencies that the world throws at us. So I'll briefly introduce myself and then I'll open up the floor for your inputs in terms of what would you want me to answer. So I run this company called Inflection Point, which is a strategy and innovation outfit. Did my PhD from IIM Bangalore in the space of corporate strategy and policy. Worked in the industry for a brief time. I teach at IIM Bangalore, ISB Hyderabad, and IIM Lucknow. I write quite avidly, write for magazines, newspapers, and in the midst of publishing my book, which would be on design thinking. Been at TEDx 5 times and I coach startups. So what I want to convey to all of you is that it's an imperative that you have multiple affiliations in your career. So even though my consulting programs are doing good, but I still never ever miss out on a chance to go and teach at IIMs or any other institution. Similarly, if I am teaching somewhere, I don't miss a chance to go and consult with some startups or help some budding entrepreneurs to get shape or perhaps write. So I think straddling multiple careers, straddling multiple ropes has been very, very effective for me. And that's what I would recommend all of you to do more systematically in your careers. These have been some of the organizations that I've had the privilege to engage with. And today I would want to share with you that how you can go ahead and make a career of yourself in a gig economy, something not to be frowned upon, but think that would give you a lot of credibility, satisfaction, and control on your own careers, on your own time and choices. So that is about me. The intent for session today would be to give you perspective from my own experience and whatever I have researched, learned, and observed in terms of how you can utilize this time instead of getting frustrated about what's happening around you currently. How do you utilize the current time and try and do something about it? So that's where we stand right now. So I'll pause here and I would request all of you to go ahead one by one and identify what would your expectation from the session be today. Please go ahead. In no particular order.
Thanks for providing this session, which I'm sure will be helpful. I was just wondering if you have any views on how companies look at the gig economy in terms of trying to engage with it and get talent.
The starting point. And I think this is where we are once again coming back as to the purpose. So what's the purpose of you going gig? And I would invoke Friedrich Nietzsche, who once very famously said, he who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. Career is too critical for us to be left to chance. If you think about that, a good 1/3 of your living life, apart from sleeping, is spent on some sort of a career, whether it is a formal or informal career. To begin with, your career of a student, and then eventually your career of either managing a business or making a bread for yourself, etc. And the whole premise is that this is a very critical aspect of you going gig. So are you going gig out of no choice, or are you going gig as a very well thought out chosen strategy? Just to give you a perspective, in the year 2018, more than 50% of all the employees at Google were a part of the gig economy. More than 50%. Okay, now that is a huge, huge number. And a company like Google, which would have an acceptance rate of 0.2% of all the applications, which means if 1,000 people apply to Google, just about 2 people get through Google. And in that intense competitive environment also, Google does not mind chancing on people at the gig economy. So the gig is a huge spectrum of people who work from right from your taxi drivers and cab drivers all the way to top-notch coders who do not want to necessarily work with one organization as a full-time employee, but rather they want to straddle between multiple employment so that we have an access to such talent, and at the same time they have flexibility. So multiple reasons for people to come out and join the gig economy. The top three reasons, as per research and as per observations, is number one, it is additional income. Number two, it is freedom. And number three, it is learning. So I would want really all of you to introspect that what is your objective in joining the economy? Is it to make your ends meet? Is it to have the flexibility and the freedom of choosing, saying no, saying yes, and doing what you wish to do? Or is it about learning, which would eventually go back to either of the two things? And that's where the gig, if you look at the golden circle, which is a very profound way of looking at your choice sets. So the outcome in terms of what you end up doing will be defined by why, which is the purpose, and how, which is the process. So I can't answer the purpose on your behalf. That is something that you have to answer. But I can certainly nudge you into thinking about the three core objectives. So let me write the three core objectives on the chat. And if I can invoke all of you to write down out of these three, what is your personal reason of going into gig? Or maybe today you are still not a part of the gig employment. You might be in a borderline situation. You might want to look at it more seriously going forward for all that you know. So the three reasons or the purpose of gig could be thought of as money, freedom, and learning or knowledge. So if you can voice over and tell me what is your dominant purpose, why this field excites you, that might be interesting.
This Devin here. I think it's all combination of three together that really makes it more interesting for
Mhm.
individual to really look at taking up this. Maybe also the economy is turning into that line that you are more comfortable to take what you want and what you don't want, and
Mhm.
you have the freedom in your hand to choose what you want. So that's really what really
Absolutely.
I think.
Absolutely. And what you also need to bear in mind, all of you, is that the freedom comes at a cost. And the cost of the freedom is what we're trying to minimize here. And the reason why people want to work with a large organization or having a stable job is because that they are okay to let go the freedom for the sake of stability. So Ayushi says learning about different segments of business. So the key question that you need to always answer to yourself is the purpose. What is the purpose for which you want to? And then today's discussion will be the process that if you really want to flourish in a gig economy, what is the process that you should be largely adopting? Some of the insights which I would be offering to you would be reasonably counterintuitive, and that's where I would invite you to engage with me in a discussion, a dialogue, and maybe that's where some of the concepts will get clarified. The first thing that you all need to bear in mind is what's the starting point. The sweet spot is where the opportunity available in the marketplace meets with the competence available with you. Many times, the starting point of your career, whether it is the gig economy or the classic economy, starts with opportunity. A good example is the Indian IT services industry. Scores of engineers who might have graduated from any field went on to the Indian IT industry not because they had a specific competence. Many a time they didn't even have programming skills, but they went to the Indian IT services industry because of the opportunity that it had to offer. A reasonably exciting job, good compensations, a image in the society of being a techie, on-site opportunities, and henceforth and so on. So many times the starting point of our careers, knowingly or unknowingly, is an opportunity that beacons at us. But when you're a part of a gig economy, you have to start not from necessarily the opportunity, but from a competence. And that is true even for startups for that matter. We can see there is a huge opportunity right now for people's home getting sanitized. Suppose, and I keep wondering, when somebody tests COVID positive and the person is quarantined, what is the mechanism of sanitizing the entire home? I'm still at loss. Are there these companies that provide these services? Now that's a great opportunity, but this opportunity is highly temporary. Once the vaccine is out or once the whole threat goes away, the opportunity will be redundant. So starting point for any business, any gig enterprise cannot be an opportunity. It has to be competence. which means that you need to ask yourself the question, what is something that you are better off than most of the people are doing? And this competence can either come from your work experience, or come from your academic qualification, or can come from a sheer interest that you have in certain area where you can learn something quickly. Having said that it is a marriage of opportunity and competence, what you also need to bear in mind is the statement that you are always better off having a small share of a large market than a large share of a small market. So try to look at operating a niche in a market which otherwise offers a huge opportunity for you to grow. That's very, very critical. Instead of trying to operate in a market which is super niche and will remain niche forever, an example of a market that would remain niche forever, or at least niche right now also, is these masks that people are donning, which are customized masks. So I know this industry which is 3D printing of masks. Now this is again a very, very small, and even if you're the only 3D printing company in a city like Bangalore or Bombay, the market is very temporary and the market itself is absolutely small and would remain so. So you need to really start introspecting and not chase the opportunities. That is very, very critical. Now, the question that was asked to me was that what is the view of companies towards the economy? I gave you the example of how Google treats it. Google is completely okay with having an employee who comes, works for some amount of time and goes away. Contract labor is a very, very big deal in companies like Google, because for them, it doesn't really matter whether the employee is a part of the organization for a very long time or is a part of the gig culture. And there are companies, I know scores of organizations in the West, which operate as traders of employees who want to badge in and badge out of the gig culture. So I think that going forward, it's only going to accentuate. And the COVID led displacement of labor and this disruption that we have is accelerating the adoption. Because who knows, when things come back to apparently normalcy, people might still want to work from home. People might still want to exercise the freedom that they have gotten a taste of in the last couple of months. And that's where gig economy can be a very, very viable choice going forward to you. If I take a step back and make all of you understand why gig economy and what is the future of gig economy, what we need to understand is the whole premise of transaction cost. Now, this goal to Ronald Coase. Ronald Coase wrote a very fascinating paper in 1922, uh, which he talked about the boundary of the firm. And he said that the reason organizations exist is because the transaction cost of getting work done from an employee is lower than the transaction cost of getting work done from a contractor. That's why companies exist. Here, a very simple explanation of why organizations exist. And the reason organizations grow and till the time they keep growing is when the marginal cost of getting work done within the boundary of the firm is lower than the marginal cost, which is at the boundary of the firm, which is between a firm and an outside player. But thanks to the internet, thanks to the market of contract labor, thanks to the advent of technology, things like LinkedIn, it might turn out that getting a work done from an outsider might turn out to be cheaper than getting a work done from an employee. And that balance is actually tipping in the favor of contract. Because when an employee comes into the organization, he or she develops what we call as a moral hazard. What I mean a moral hazard is because I have a permanent employment, my productivity would go down. It's just like, if there are two bikers, one wearing a helmet versus one not wearing a helmet, the person who's wearing a helmet would take more risk because he or she knows that I'm more secure. That's called moral hazard in the space of psychology. And that's where I think you should consider the aspect of uh, you know moonlighting or gig economy much more seriously. If I talk about my own self, and I would spend 2 minutes to give you that perspective. When I started my career, I used to work in a company called Wipro, and I was there for about 6-7 years. What happened to me was that every weekend I used to go out and teach. I'm talking of 2005, 15 years back. I'll go out and I'll teach at big schools. On some of the weekends, I'll go out and I do consulting assignments. It was not that I was not getting paid at Wipro, but I wasn't somehow very satisfied at Wipro. So instead of leaving Wipro and hunting for a job, I started parallelly creating a revenue stream for myself over the weekends. developed a passion towards teaching. And that gave me the confidence that, okay, I can resign from Wipro and I can start doing my PhD program, which I did at IIM Bangalore. While I was in the middle of my PhD program, it occurred to me that I have age on my side. I have a PhD under the belt from a prestigious institute. If I don't start a consulting company now, then what's the fun? So in the midst of the PhD program, while I was about to finish it and defend my thesis, I started my own company. And today I run the organization, I go and teach, I write. And then now when this pandemic has hit, I have multiple revenue streams in case one revenue stream dies out. And that's the point which I want to make to all of you. Don't think of gig as a switch from your current career. Think of a gig as an addition to your current career. And I would like to strongly suggest at whatever stage of your career you are in, including if you're running your own company, you should never ever rely on a single career. That can be suicidal. You should always have multiple careers available to you so that you can straddle between careers. That's very important. And what does a career give you? Let me also offer it to you that what does a career give you? A career gives you three things primarily. The first thing that a career gives you is it gives you financial independence. The second a career gives you is a sense of progress. And the third it gives you is legitimacy. Social legitimacy is what I call it. And I would strongly recommend you to make notes as we're talking, because I want to deal this whole topic of gig economy slightly more scientifically, slightly more in a disciplined manner, and I would urge you to do the same. So financial independence, sense of progress, and legitimacy. That's all a career gives you. My dad retired from the company which he joined. I resigned from the company which I joined just about in 6 years, and I'm running my own company. And my children may not even have that latitude of joining an organization. They might want to do something completely different. So what was reality yesterday has now become an exception, and that's going to be increasingly so. A gig economy can give you all the three things. Financial independence it can give you. It can give you a sense of progress as long as you are tracking yourself against certain milestones. A sense of progress can be in terms of how much money you make, in terms of how much you learn, in terms of how many people you influence, how many countries you travel, what all skills you develop. It's a very personal choice. And the third thing is legitimacy. So you need to start thinking about what is the niche which I want to adopt and how do I pedal in that direction. So over the years, the transaction costs have come down, markets have opened up, gig has become more legitimate, and large organizations have proven that way. And there is no reason why we should. Gig has really moved from the cab drivers and the food delivery guys all the way to the top-notch skills. And that is only going to be the case going forward. That's the first point. The second aspect which you need to bear in mind is content is more important than contacts. One of the big myths that we have in our space is that if you know more and more people, you would have more and more opportunities opening up to you. I somehow do not agree with it. For example, if I look at my association with Ramesh, and Ramesh, I would invite you to answer to this question. I have done a couple of programs with Ramesh till now. Ramesh, if you can answer this question to everyone, how many times have you met?
No, we haven't met actually.
We haven't met,
Yeah.
right? The total number of occasions we have met is absolutely zero. Now he knows me, and Ramesh, how did you get to know me? How did you contact me?
I was following some of your updates in LinkedIn, and then I reached out to you on LinkedIn.
Right. So the content led to the contact, and that contact led to the credibility. And that's why I've been given this opportunity to talk about this topic. Am I making sense to all of you? So don't chase contacts. That's a big thing that we often get lost into. Don't chase contacts. Develop content. Content was the king, content is the king, and content will remain the king. And content will remain the king, especially in an environment and at a time when the system is full of so much of a noise. Google does not make you intelligent. Neither does Wikipedia make you more knowledgeable. It doesn't happen that way. With all the knowledge, apparently, with all the information and data flowing around you, it is more of a signal getting lost then signal getting created. So the good question that you need to ask yourself is that if I want to participate in the gig economy, how will I know that people know me? How will I make my presence felt? You don't make your presence felt by writing to people, by chasing people, by inviting people on LinkedIn. You don't do that. You genuinely research an area and start writing good quality content. And there are so many avenues available today. And I'll talk to you about some of the avenues which I have used to write. And I'll give you a small story on how this content makes a huge amount of difference. Okay, so this is very critical. Don't chase contacts. Develop content and people will sniff you out. Trust me on that. If you are the best in a field, literally people will chase you out, because once again, the transaction cost of discovering a talent has become very, very small. Your content will speak for yourself in a much more legitimate manner. So content plus contacts is what you get credibility from. But between the contacts and the content comes first. Here are some of the avenues in which you need to start evaluating yourself. Pick up a core idea. For example, Ramesh picked up a very interesting core idea that instead of creating a company where I have all the resource people available on my payrolls, or training people in that space, why not I come up with a mechanism, which is what we call as 10x, a mechanism where I have selected experts on different areas and I invite them to conduct specific programs. That's a business model. That was the core idea which he started his organization with. As he moved around, he started realizing that more and more people want to look at working from homes. For example, one of the webinars that he did recently was how to work from home. Now, that was never his idea, because work from home was never a big deal 1 year back when he started his organization, 1 or 2 years back. But it happened as an opportunity. So your career will exactly grow like a spiral. But your core idea has to be very, very solid. If I talk about myself, my core idea was to be a trusted advisor in the space of strategy and innovation. That was the core idea. And how do I become a trusted advisor? One is by doing a PhD program. Second is by reading voraciously, writing, and coming across as a person who is thorough. And then the opportunities come to me. Like this opportunity also came to me. It was very easy for me to say, no, I'm not an expert on big economy, but if I start applying myself, then I can actually produce something meaningful. And obviously you have to test whether it is meaningful or not. But that is how you grow as a spiral. And that's very, very critical. So while you start niche, don't remain niche. That's important. Now, this might sound a little philosophical to you, but my view is that a core idea comes when these two things meet. Let me write it down on the chat. The two things that have to meet about a core idea coming up is passion plus expertise. What we call as the hedgehog, which is passion plus mastery plus money. Suppose I'm passionate about playing music, or I'm passionate about gardening, or I'm passionate about cooking. And by the virtue of cooking more or gardening more, I might even become a master. But passion plus master is only called a hobby, right? If you're passionate about something and you are becoming a master, that's only hobby, but that can never become a profession. Hobbies do not end up becoming professions unless and until there is somebody out there who is ready to pay money for it. And I strongly believe that it is very, very critical for you to hone your skills by attending training programs, by reading, by talking to people, by absorbing and demonstrating. And I'll shortly come to that virtuous loop on how do you start with a core idea. So this core idea is very, very critical for all of you to discover. And I strongly believe that if sooner you can discover in your life, the better it would be for all of you. Because if you delay it for a very long time, then you realize that you have become subjected to the whims and fancies of the system, and you would lose your independent thinking. So that's my view. Next piece is for you to understand is content. Now, this is a screenshot of my website. And these are the places where I'll write, or where I typically write. I write for Mint, People Matters, Your Story, Inc. 42, Speak at TEDx, Entrepreneur Magazine, Medium, LinkedIn Pulse, SlideShare, my own Inflection Point website, ResearchGate, and BBN Times, apart from others. So the key here is none of these things started today. They started a long, long time back. In fact, the first article which I wrote, the first blog which I wrote was in the year 2006. And since 2006 till today, I've written close to 900 articles. Now, if I read some of my earlier articles, they were all rubbish. There were even spelling mistakes in those articles, let alone correct sentences. But over a period of time, I started realizing that if I don't write stuff, people will never get to know me. And I'll tell you a small story why writing stuff is very critical. So it's very important for you to participate in a gig economy that you develop these 3 core skills. The first skill that you need to develop for all of you is reading. Second is writing. And third is speaking. Good reading skills, good writing skills, and good speaking skills. Speaking or talking skills are very, very important for all of you to be a participant in the gig economy, because you're only as good as your last performance. It's like playing in the IPL. IPL is a very good example of gig economy. Most people who play in the IPL, they just wait for the IPL for the entire year, and they have to perform at their peak with a lot of intensity so that they get selected in the next IPL game. Not even next IPL season, the next IPL game. Same applies to all of you. Read voraciously. Write. And the way it has happened to me is that I write for LinkedIn Pulse, and I write for Medium. And Medium is some place where you can write for free, by the way. You write on Medium, you write on LinkedIn, you put your slides on SlideShare. ResearchGate, you can put your articles on. Once you start doing so, some of the other media houses will start paying attention to what you're writing, and then they will invite you to write for them. It happened with me. I started writing for my own blog at Blogger, which is Inflection Point, then went to Medium, LinkedIn Pulse, and it so happened that on Design Thinking, one of the publishing houses reached out to me. There was Penguin Random House. So Penguin Random House reached out to me early last year saying that we read your articles on LinkedIn Pulse. Would you like to author a book on design thinking? Lo and behold, it happened, and next month the book is coming out. Now, what was the probability of Penguin Random House identifying me as a suitable writer in the space of design thinking? There is no way I could have reached out to them with this appeal. But when they reached out to me, it happened because of all of that investment which has gone into writing. It happened. So writing is a very critical skill that you should never ever gloss over. Urban asks, I would like to know more on the business strategy in an organization, like how to start with to design and streamline the processes. That's a complex topic on the business strategy part. What I can definitely direct you to, Arpan, is a very fascinating book which is written on the precise question which you asked, which is called Good to Great. Tim Collins has written this book called Good to Great that talks about the importance of discipline, strategy, hedgehog concept, and the flywheel concept. So these are some of the things that would be strongly useful to all of you. But today's discussion is not so much about the organization. Today's discussion is about individual's career within an organization or outside the organization in the gig economy. And I'm telling you my own example, being a player in the gig economy, how you need to start establishing yourself with a lot of legitimacy. And that's a very, very critical starting point. Moving on from here, we have to look at how do you build content. And as I said, it's a virtuous loop. And the 5 things that you need to bear in mind for this virtual loop to happen is reading. I think reading is the most underestimated, more impressed and underutilized skill. Be a good reader. It's absolutely important. And then start writing. Today, you do not have to necessarily chase the Times of India or a HT Mint or a Forbes magazine to write. You can start writing a small blog free of cost. Go to medium.com, start writing free of cost. Start putting this on Facebook and LinkedIn and start getting traction. Within 6 to 8 months, you would be invited to write at other places. Do pro bono activities, which is what I call as teaching. If you want to sharpen your axe in one dimension, go and teach. What you need to bear in mind, and I'll write it down, is this. Where you learn from need not be where you earn from. Does it make sense to all of you? Where you learn from need not be where you earn from. So don't try to mix up the two things. So you can learn from 10 sources, but you don't have to necessarily make money from those 10 sources. Then mentoring. If you're in a large city like Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi, Chennai, Hyderabad, there are so many startups whom you can mentor. They don't pay you money. You learn from them. And finally, by observation. And all of these things would help you become what I call as a T-shaped personality. Who's a T-shaped personality? A T-shaped personality is a person who has an incredible amount of depth in a certain domain. And that expertise gives you credibility so that you are invited for a discussion, so that people listen to you. But at the same time, you need to have a horizontal perspective on several things by which you can establish relevance with other topics. So by the virtue of your own work experience, you can develop depth. By the virtue of your reading, engaging with different contexts, you can develop a huge amount of breadth. And the breadth is where you will be making chance encounters with other people. And that is how you will be really finding the whole engagement useful and going in your own favor. And for that to happen, it's very critical that you manage your finances very well. One of the key takeaways that we wanted to have in this session is how do you manage your money? Have multiple affiliations. One career stream or one revenue stream is completely insufficient in today's time and age. I'm not talking because of COVID and lockdown and all that. Generally speaking, you can never ever rely completely on one single revenue stream. You need to have multiple revenue streams in your career. And for that, you need to have multiple careers. Even if one career is going solid. Second thing is fungibility of talent. You have talent, and many people end up getting bound up in one career. And it happens in economics, we call this as monopsony. Monopoly is where you have a single seller. Monopsony is where you have a single buyer. And a monopsony situation happens when your talent has only one buyer, which is your organization. And you get frustrated when you do not get promoted. You get frustrated when people do not pay attention to your life's objective. Why that? You're open to exercise as long as there's no conflict of interest. You should be open to do moonlighting. Amazon's Jeff Bezos had this idea of opening a store to sell books much before he quit his company and started this company called Amazon. He used to work as an investment banker in a company called D.E. Shaw, and he was mooting the idea as an employee there. Subrata Bakshi and Ashok Soota started mooting the idea of Mindtree when they were employees of Wipro. Sachin Bansal and Benny Bansal were mooting the idea of Flipkart when they were the employees of Amazon. And there are so many examples of this mystery that you need to have a fungibility of talent. And lastly, this is a great time for you to pick up online courses and certificate programs. Don't worry about spending money. Don't worry about that. It's an investment. If you go to Coursera and you take a course on social psychology, which I want to take up, usual price of social psychology course is 16,000 rupees. Today it is available at 500 rupees. Nowhere in past and maybe nowhere in future, you will have a 16,000 rupees course available at 500 rupees. Go and lap it up. What is 500 bucks? The moment the theaters will open, you will burn that 500 bucks in one single sitting. And that's critical. And for you to discover your own talent and get your pricing models right, the last recommendation I have is choose your engagements very wisely. I always believe that you need to have a heuristics. Heuristics means a rule of thumb. You will do this, you will not do this, and why, more importantly. And I have the simple rule of thumb. I'll get you an engagement if one of the three things meet: money, knowledge, and brand. Initially, you work for money because you need to make your ends meet. When you work for money, you develop a brand for yourself. With the brand and knowledge, you can get more money. And that is how the wave has to go on. In many cases, you will start working with knowledge. Then you will get brand, and then you will get money. So the sequence of money, brand, and knowledge can change in your career. But you still need to have a very, very clear sequence and be very careful about if I am engaging. For example, today I am spending my 1 hour into this conversation. My reason for spending that 1 hour is knowledge. Because while I'm talking to you, I'm also reflecting. It's a great opportunity for me to assimilate my own knowledge in this space, my own experience in this space, and put this in a PPT format. It's not about money. Of course, brand gets built when you do something good, but the primary driver for me was knowledge. Similarly, you ask yourself, whenever you participate in any engagement, whether through gig or the conventional economy, what is your primary driver? And are the other two also coming along the way? So in summary, what I want to offer to all of you is the fact that you need to bear in mind. So let me quickly sort of summarize the presentation for all of you, and then I can take maybe one or two questions. First is to start up with a purpose. Why you want to participate in the gig economy? The second thing is knowing competence, which is what is unique in you, which you are passionate about, which you really want to master, and then map it with the opportunity. The third piece is content is the king. Content gives you contacts, contacts give you credibility. And with that credibility, you get more content. Start with a niche area and spiral out. Use opportunities without losing your core idea. Next is do write avidly. Start writing on free, and then you will be invited to write good quality stuff. The next piece, reading, writing, teaching, mentoring, observing is a virtuous loop through which you develop your content and credibility. You develop a broad perspective and a deep depth. On managing finances, you need to have multiple careers, and gig is a great example of having that multiple career. Develop a fungible talent. When the going gets tough, you need to really exercise your mental and physical muscle to not become irrelevant. It's a great time to pick up some certification courses. Choose what is your starting point of every engagement. For me, today engagement is knowledge, right? And I'm sure if I do this over a period of time, I'll get the remaining two. But you need to know what's your starting point and where you want to go from there onwards. So that's about it from my side. I would be happy to take two questions. Let's do that.
Thanks a lot for this session. Really glad to be the part of this. Unfortunately, this is the first time I have ever come across this term called gig. But nevertheless, really happy to be part of this. So my question, basically, how we can define or how we can basically conclude the difference between a traditional setup and a gig thing, basically, because I am basically the user experience designer and planning to start my own firm with a traditional approach, basically. Now this is something new which is quite exciting to me, so few thoughts
Sure.
on that.
Absolutely, no worries. So the first thing is that when you start your own company, you typically look for employees, and you want to select resume,
Yes.
interview them, get them, show them the big
Yes.
picture, and try to see if they can remain with you for a long amount of time. That is what every entrepreneur would want to do to build up a team. What the gig economy offers you is an alternate. It says that, okay, you don't have to necessarily get employees full time. If you think there is a smart talent in the market, but the person is available only for 6 months, making a choice between convincing him to be a full-time employee with you or losing out on that talent altogether, why not engage him or her for 6 months and move on? That is called gig economy. So maybe half of your workforce can be a workforce on your payroll, and half of the workforce can be completely people on contract. And how do you find these people on contract? They are all available on LinkedIn. If you go on LinkedIn, there are tons of people who would be very happy to give their time and effort and labor for a given amount of time and for a given amount of money. You should be able to engage with them, and the same applies to you. So I think gig economy offers you an alternate to giving people a choice of either working with you full time or not working with you at all. For example, if I want to coach a person, a leader, if I want to start engaging, I don't even leave my job to do so. I can always do it alongside my job. And that is going to be reality going forward. So that's my view. Does it help?
Great. Yes, certainly. Thanks a lot, Pawan.
Glad. Any other question?
I unfortunately joined a little late, but even the little that I heard was very fascinating, very well made. Thank you for your time. So, quick question. There's one thing like when you start a gig thing, you're probably like a loner. You start alone as a as a freelancer and stuff. But at some point in your journey, you kind of decide that hey, now I start hiring people, and I start creating a company with multiple functions, multiple employees. So it's very difficult to know what is that right point at which you start hiring people and move from a self-employment to an entrepreneur. So any thoughts on that?
Good question. So the point number one which I want to offer to you is that you can remain a single entrepreneur for the rest of your life. You do not have to have a team. I think that's a big myth which exists, that every entrepreneur needs to grow, have a team. In many cases, for example, if I ask you about, a couple of you might have heard about this person by the name of Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
Others might have heard about Jim Collins. I spoke to you about Good to Great author Jim Collins.
Yes.
Jim Collins
Yes.
runs a company which is only 2 employees. That's it. He and his assistant, period. Yet he is able to mentor, influence tons and tons of leaders across the world. So I think, so the whole idea is, and I read it somewhere, that you can either create a big, or the whole idea is that you can either create a great organization or you can create a great idea, not both. Let me repeat myself. You can either create a great organization or you can create a great idea. You have to choose what you want to do. For example, if you ask me, I run a company called Inflection Point. Would I grow my company? Right now, the answer looks completely no to me. I'm very happy to work with, other organizations like Ramesh's company, for example, to share my knowledge. I don't have to necessarily do it all by myself. If you're not comfortable managing teams, then you should not get in there, because that's not the only recipe of growth or success. That's my view. Only if you're passionate about growing teams, you're good at delegation, you are good at process orientation, etc., that you need to grow. And again, when you grow, you still have a brilliant choice available with you. Start gig and see if you want the person permanently. The person, if he or she sees his value, would join you. Otherwise, gig is always there for you. So that's a completely a possible alternate which is available to you today, which was never available to you 10 years back.
Makes sense. Thank you.
We are actually living in very exciting times where a lot more options have opened up to you, which were unthinkable till about a couple of years back. If I find something, what is my passion, I want to really work towards it. If we are aware that it is urgent need to build multiple sources of income, how can we get the daily motivation and don't get dull in our own identified passion? So I think passion has to coexist with profession. Don't try to force fit your passion into your profession. That's a disastrous. If it can happen, fantastic. But if it doesn't happen, that should also be fine by you. And you need to have multiple revenue streams. Some would be dull, some would be exciting. So that's very critical, that you do not look for excitement in all activities of your life. If I look at Nobel Prize winners, Nobel Prize winners always ensured that a good part of their life is absolutely dull. What they wear, what they eat, whom they socialize with, what is their routine, what is absolutely dull, no-brainer, so that what matters they can apply their brain to. So have some sort of a revenue stream that can be rental revenue, some stuff like that, some royalty stuff that can keep the remaining part of your life completely exciting. Does it help, Atul? Srinivas, what is the relation, if any, between Pulse, Medium, LinkedIn, or can we focus on one and ignore the rest? Don't ignore, Srinivas. I would suggest LinkedIn is same as Pulse, by the way. It's called LinkedIn Pulse. I start with Medium. Medium has a bigger outreach than LinkedIn. Medium gives you a lot of discovery than LinkedIn. LinkedIn gives you a lot of business contacts. You know who visited you, etc. So don't copy the same content, write differently, but get a cadence. That I would write an article every 15 days. That kind of a cadence would really put you in a very good light. Okay, let me take one last question and then I'll have to sign off because I have another meeting at 4 o'clock.
Well, so this is Ajit. I really don't have a question. I just wanted to express my thought. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so thanks for this session. In fact, we keep hearing around us all the time that networking is pretty important these days. But I think there was a pretty eye-opening and hard-hitting statement that you made, that content is the king and the rest of the things will probably follow. So thank you so much. The other thing that I took away, which is very profound, is what you learn from did not be what you earn from. So that's also very important. And I just want to express my thanks to you. I have known Ramesh for a long time. We worked in the same organization for many years. So in fact, things that you have been talking about, right, the things that are happening over past few years are all new opportunities, things that didn't happen a decade ago and stuff like that. I think Ramesh is also kind of creating something of that sort. I'm sure you're also doing pretty much like that from what we heard. So just thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I turn out to be at some sort of a turning point in my professional career right now. So a lot of takeaways for me. Thank you so much.
Okay, then with that.
Yeah, I think we can end the session with that. Thanks a lot, Pawan, for the time. We'll touch base separately. And thanks a lot to all the participants who spared the time. If possible, do give us some feedback. We wanted to explore ways to have this as an ongoing series with focus on different areas of the gig economy. And based on the feedback, we'll be more than happy to arrange for sessions in the future. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Pawan, once again. Thank you to all of you, and have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.